All right, welcome to the webinar sponsored by Asian American Chamber of Commerce. It's a great honor to have the opportunity to be here with the great panelists and officials from AACC. AACC has done a great deal for the Asian American community in the US, and we're really happy that this panel is going to make an impact helping the Asian community. Today's topic is US visa options for investors and entrepreneurs, especially during and after COVID. So today we have some board members from AACC, and we also have two great panelists who are going to give us their insights. So let's start by introducing the president of AACC, Cindy Shao. Can you just greet everybody, say something about AACC. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad to have everyone here. Thank you for joining our chamber events. And this event being organized by our International Business Committee, chaired by Laura Belden. So thank you, Laura, for your leadership planning this event, and we are so glad to have support from our lawyer members, Clarissa and Gerald, and we so appreciate your support, providing your expertise and consult to our members. So I just want to briefly go through several slides. First, love to recognize our wonderful board of directors. And if you are not a member yet, here, please check out some benefits. By being a member, we welcome everyone to be a part of our vibrant chamber. And we'd like to give a huge shout out to our sponsors. Thanks their generous sponsorship to make a chamber event and program possible. And then I would like to briefly introduce some upcoming events. The restaurant month is ongoing for the whole month of June. We encourage everyone to come out and support local Asian restaurants. Every month, we're hosting this member showcase, and we invite our member to present their company. Feel free to contact us to arrange a future month to showcase your company. And well, this is our monthly virtual member and new and prospective member orientation. Invite your business friends to join if they are interested in learning more about the chamber events, programs, what we can offer. So this is our GovCon series. It's a training event, something not to be missed. Okay, next, get back to you, Jill.
Thank you. And I noticed that we have several board members on this webinar today. Would you like to say hello? On my screen, I see Laura. You want to say hello? Okay, Deborah.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this phenomenal topic today. And, we're just excited to share information about the chamber and also valuable information that you'll get through this webinar. So thank you so much and welcome.
And Patrick, would you like to say a few words? All right, so now let's progress with our seminar today. We have two distinguished panelists. Let me start with introducing Clarissa. Clarissa Upadhyay is a distinguished lawyer. He is a senior attorney at Trow and Rahal. She has been practicing immigration and nationality law for 10 years. Clarissa has extensive experience with non-immigrant as well as immigrant issues, and she specializes in employment-based cases, marriage and family-based cases, permanent resident status applications. She's also very valuable in this panel because of she is well-versed in the visas for investors and entrepreneurs, including the EB-5 investment. And she received her JD from University of Baltimore where she served as president of the Asian Pacific American Law Student Association. She received her bachelor's degree, cum laude, in international affairs from George Washington University. She is very active in various civil communities. She is a member of American Immigration Lawyers Association, the Association of Nepalese in Americas, and the Asian Pacific American Bar Association of Maryland. And she is also part of the DC, Maryland, and Virginia Bar. Let's welcome Clarissa Upadhyay. Do we have virtual clapping?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome. And now I would like to introduce our the other panelist, Mr. Gerald Lamel. Gerald is a partner at Dunlap, Bennett, and Ludwig. He has more than 30 years of experience in immigration law and helps corporations, financial professionals, investors, and startups to achieve their corporate and financial goals. And he specializes in investor and employment-based visas, such as L1, H1, E2, EB5. We're going to touch base on those later in this webinar. And Gerald was raised in Africa and Europe, so he fully understands the challenges facing foreign nationals in this country, and he's going to share his experience with all of us. Gerald began his career as an attorney for the largest international investors in the US. Soon, he became a leading advocate for immigration reform and human rights, while he served as Deputy Executive Director of Amnesty International from 1995 to 2007. And he was the Executive Director of Africa Action, the former US Committee on Africa from 2007 and 2010. He's quite a celebrity. His work has appeared in a number of newspapers, magazines, and professional journals. And he was a regular on CNN, CNN International, C-SPAN, Voice of America, Al Jazeera, and BBC, as well as many local channels. He got his bachelor's degree from Wesleyan University, his JD from Georgetown University Law Center. He is a member of the New York Bar, the DC Bar, and the American Lawyers Association. And he's also a law professor. Let's welcome Gerald Lamel.
Thank you. But most importantly, I look better than that picture of me. As you can see, right?
Maybe a little more hair back then, but still very handsome, nonetheless. And more
it's a pleasure to
experience.
be here. It's an honor, actually, to be here with the chamber. Absolutely.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And both Gerald and Clarissa have devoted a lot of time volunteering with AACC as well as the Asian American community. So we really want to show our appreciation. Well, today's topic is about foreign investment in the US and the challenges as well as opportunities. No doubt, foreign investment plays a very important role in the economy in this country. According to the World Investment Report in 2020, the foreign direct investment flows in 2019 up to US $246 billion in 1 year. And the foreign direct investment stock in 2019 reached 9,465 billion. The US continued to be the #1 destination for foreign investors. And why is that? Because the US has very strong financial services, independent judicial open system, and productive workforce, highly developed infrastructure, and the business environment that promote innovation. So the US investment has grown in the previous years, but following COVID-19, we're experiencing challenges. The foreign investment to the US dropped by 49% since COVID to 134 billion. But compared to other countries, it's still a much better record because the rest of the world saw their investment drop by 69% in 2020. So very clearly, we see opportunities as well as challenges. And among all the foreign investment to the US, Europe holds the most position. And the second region where foreign investment come from is Asia and Pacific, that showcase how important Asian American community plays in this arena. So now let's get into the subject. First of all, I would like to have Gerald enlighten us on the basics. What is the opportunity? How is the environment in investment in the USA? Gerald.
Well, thank you so much, Jill. You know, it's we're coming out of COVID, and COVID has obviously had a major impact on investments across the United States, and we simply can't ignore it. We're going to talk a little bit later on about the impact of COVID on immigration. But right now, I'd like to just highlight a few reasons why this might be a good time to invest. I mean, first of all, and invest in Northern Virginia, where we are located, the DC area. First of all, DC is the seat of government. This is where the government does its business, where Congress is. It's where a lot of lobbying takes place on behalf of the business community. So this is a good place to be. But aside from that, and the beauty of being in this area, there are a number of major corporations that are here, some of the giants in US industry: Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle, Lockheed Martin, a number of the biggest corporations across the planet that have a strong, if not a headquarters here. And as a result, there's a lot of other subsidiary companies and subcontracting companies that come here to work with them. This is a great place to be, because you go down Tech Corridor, you see nothing but Fortune 500 companies. So why not be here and get in on the fun? This has some of the finest universities on the planet. I'm very partial to Georgetown, as you might imagine, which I think is the finest. But there's a number of excellent universities. The school system, the public school system in Northern Virginia is often ranked in the top 5 in the country. So what a great place to raise your children. In addition, this is the headquarters of the US military. The US military, the Pentagon is located here. And what does that mean? That means that there's a lot of government contracting. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to get involved in the economy, the booming economy that continues in Northern Virginia. Interest rates are still low. This is the time to get loans, to grow and expand business, to stabilize debt, and to prepare the business for the journey to come. And in addition, the Northern Virginia has some of the highest salaries, which means people have more disposable income. And being a transient area where a lot of people are coming in and coming out, there's an opportunity for new customers that other areas don't necessarily share. So this is the opportunity to invest has always been here. What has changed with COVID? Well, COVID has provided some opportunities. A lot of businesses aren't operating the way they used to. A lot of systems aren't flowing the way they used to. So there's an opportunity for new ideas, new ways of approaching. Businesses, people are no longer going into the office like they used to. There's a lot of virtual work being done. And is there a ways to capitalize on that? Is there a way to establish your own business model that takes advantage of it? COVID has caused change, and change is opportunity. So this is a good time to think about investing. And, we encourage you to do it. Lastly, I'm just going to say that it's very difficult to do without good partners. And I just want to make a little plug for the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, but this is what the Chamber does. The Chamber puts people in the right place in order to grow their business. It puts them with the partners they need to make their businesses successful. And I encourage you to stay in touch with the chamber or contact the chamber if you haven't contacted them before, and find out how you can get help, how you can get financing tips, options for financing, meet construction managers or construction companies, meet commercial real estate companies, anything that can give you that advantage that you need for your business to succeed.
Yes, well, judging from the traffic in this area, we can definitely say that the economy has a very strong rebound. So
Absolutely, absolutely, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. You're
So this
absolutely
presents
right.
great opportunity, I'm sure. So now, Clarissa, what are the challenges that COVID has brought in and the political environment, perhaps? Could you share some lights on the current development?
Sure, we'll be happy to do so. Thank you, Jill. Going to share my screen. Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what is the current immigration climate during the pandemic? So as summer is just around the corner, we have more and more people that are getting vaccinated. People want to travel again, but there's still many barriers to foreign nationals, and foreign nationals being those that are not US citizens or legal permanent residents, those that hold green cards in the United States. But foreign nationals are eager to travel abroad and to the United States, but there are still those barriers in place. And I'll discuss three main ones today. One is that most US embassies and consulates continue to remain primarily closed or only offer limited visa services or emergent visa services for foreign nationals. And this is all based on that current country's COVID condition. As we know, each country is different. So then that will dictate that consulate's policies for issuing appointments for US visas. And some consulates, for example, will only indicate an emergency appointment will only be entertained, while others, you might have to wait anywhere from 60 days for anywhere up to 460 days for a visa appointment and processing of your US visa. Now, we've heard throughout the news, there have been a number of presidential proclamations due to the state of COVID in one particular country. It is affecting travel to and from the United States. So with that in mind, US consulates abroad from the countries listed here, because of the travel bans implemented by the United States, they now require a national interest exception be approved prior to traveling to the United States if you happen to be in one of these countries in the past 14 days. And as you can see, India was just recently added to the list a month ago due to the spike in their COVID cases and due to the Delta variant that we're now unfortunately hearing spreading internationally. Another major barrier is that if you don't qualify for an NIE from one of these countries, but you still have a valid US visa in your passport or have what we call ESTA. ESTA is available for those that it's visa exempt, but because you have these countries have an agreement with the United States, it's similar to a US tourist visa. You just don't have a visa stamp in your passport. You can enter the United States for tourist or short business trips. You are eligible to quarantine in a country that's not subject to the travel ban implemented by the United States 14 days prior to coming back to the United States. But keep in mind that if you do quarantine in a country such as, let's say, Turkey or Greece or Mexico, that individual still cannot purchase the ticket to the United States until after the 14-day quarantine period has been completed. And then I think, as we all know, even from international travel abroad, even if you are vaccinated, everyone is required to present a negative COVID test when entering the United States. I'd also like to go a little bit more into detail about the NIEs, because we've had a number of our clients from these countries that are listed here that are wanting to travel either as an investor or entrepreneur or as a high-level manager or CEO of a company that are stuck abroad. So how might the national interest exception help them, but also inform you of the current changes to its policy? So prior to the Biden administration, under the previous administration, the prior standard was that to get an NIE, which is the National Interest Exception application approved, consular officers would just require the foreign national to be able to show that they're contributing substantially to the U.S. economy. So for example, if you're able to obtain a business letter from the company that you worked for in the United States as a manager, or maybe that state's chamber of commerce that your company does business or operations in, and you could show how valuable your services were to the US company, that was sufficient then. So this was up until maybe the beginning of this year. But what had happened, the current administration decided to implement a more stringent policy. And this new policy now is limited to only those people who would qualify for an NIE for business travel, but you would have to be one that would be providing vital support for the US critical infrastructure. Now, per the Department of Homeland Security's website, there are 16 sectors that are deemed critical to the US infrastructure. And I'm not going to name all 16 of them, but a couple of them include healthcare and public health, emergency services, critical manufacturing, food and agriculture, and energy services. Let's fast forward to March from the beginning of this year. The Department of State, which kind of presides over the policies that are instituted by all US consulates and embassies worldwide, decided to issue a more restricted policy for NIEs when they started to rescind certain groups that were on the NIE list. And these included certain technical experts and specialists, senior level managers and executives, treaty traders and investors, which Gerald will actually go into further detail in our presentation, professional athletes, and then dependents, spouses, and children who are under the age of 21 for these groups of individuals. Of course, with providing further restrictions, you're going to receive some backlash. So just at the end of last month, the Department of State issued another policy on NIEs that then applied to travelers, that then included back on the list executives of companies to come if they could show that they supported a critical infrastructure or significant economic activity in the United States. So as you can see, it's a forever changing landscape with respect to the policies for that foreign nationals will face. So if you have any thoughts of traveling or plans of traveling to the United States, and you are from one of those current countries that have a travel ban, and you feel that you may be able to obtain an NIE, it definitely helps to reach out to either Gerald or myself as we can further guide you through this ever-changing landscape.
Thank you very much, Clarissa. Yes, for such details. And this is very useful for those people who are interested in investing in the US. And if they want to come to the US, they have to deal with an array of immigration issues. Now let's go down to details. Talk about the specific visa categories that they can take advantage of. I've heard from these lawyers that there are several categories: non-immigrant, immigrant, E2, L1, EB50. So now we're going to divide the alphabets into two groups. So we'll divide them for Gerald and Clarissa to introduce to us to those alphabets. So let's start from Clarissa. Give us an alphabet soup of the non-immigrant visa. Let's go with L1 and O.
Okay, thank you, Jill. So I will focus on the L1 and O. These are both two types of non-immigrant visas, which means they're temporary visas that allow you to work and remain in the United States with your families if you choose to do so. So the L1 It's a visa for an intercompany transfer. It's actually a good choice if you choose to transfer an employee to the US that is already working for an affiliated company outside the United States. Some of the main criteria for the L1 visa is that the foreign national has to have at least 1 year of full-time employment with the company outside the US during the past 3 years. And of course, is coming to work either for the same company or an affiliated company that shares like a corporate qualifying relationship with the company abroad and in the United States. And then that work experience outside the United States and the US must either be in a managerial and executive level. So this is the L1A. There are two subcategories for the L1. There's an L1A for the managerial or executive level employee, and then an L1B visa category for the special knowledge or what we call advanced knowledge employee who may have like advanced knowledge or special knowledge of the employer's business, and it's difficult to train someone who you hire like right away from the US because it will take rigorous training or a long period of time to be able to get them up to speed. So that's why you wish to transfer that employee for abroad, maybe to further train US employees or to work on a special project in the United States. The maximum duration for these types of visas is initially issued for 3 years, but it's 1 year if, let's say, the company from abroad would like to open up a new office in the United States, and that office in the United States has only been in business for less than 1 year, then the initial L1 visa is issued for 1 year. The L1 visa status can be extended for a maximum duration of 7 years for L1A managers or executives, and then L1Bs for and then 5 years for the L1B special knowledge or advanced knowledge employee. What's also helpful is that the spouse and unmarried children of the principal L1 visa holder can join the L1 principal in the United States, and this visa dependent status is referred to as the L2 visa for the same duration of time. And then the spouse of an L1 visa holder actually has the ability to work in the United States after they enter an L2 dependent status. Unfortunately, the children are not authorized to work, just the spouse. Now, if the US company that employs the individual in, let's say, the L1A manager or executive level status feels that they would like them to remain permanently in the US, there is a path to a green card, to legal permanent residency for this individual. This is known as the multinational manager or executive category. The applicant who's seeking permanent residency in this category must be seeking employment, in the same type of position, executive or managerial, with the same or affiliated company. So that is the L1 visa option in a nutshell. The second is the O1 visa. For some investors or entrepreneurs, not many, but there are a select few, and you may actually qualify. The O1 visas for persons of extraordinary ability. This is also a type of non-immigrant visa. Like the L1 visa category, there are two subcategories for the O1. There's the O1A, if you're a person of extraordinary ability in the fields of athletics, sciences, or business. And then there's the O1B, which I'm not going to go into detail today, is for well-known artists, and these can be renowned directors internationally, as well as culinary artists and international supermodels. There is, like the L1, a corresponding green card category. This is known as the EB1A. It's for persons of actually extraordinary ability that allows the individual in O1, after they temporarily enter the United States in O1, that allows them to apply for permanent residency. So what are the basic O1A requirements? Well, the individual must show that they have sustained a claim or has been recognized as one of the few that has, at the top of their field or within their industry. And then they also have to show that they've gained some sort of national claim if it's from the country where they're a citizen of or where they're where their company is mainly doing business on, that they've received national claim in that regard, or they may have already received international claim. And then if you happen to be the recipient of major international awards, such as a Nobel Peace Prize, but we know that's not issued that often, but if you have something that's equivalent in your industry or in your field to that of the Nobel Peace Prize, that can make you qualified and eligible for the O1 visa category. But don't be too worried. If you don't if you're not the recipient of this type of major international award, that's not the equivalent of a Nobel Peace Prize, there are other criteria that you can satisfy. And I'll just briefly show you the criteria. There are 9. If you can at least meet 3 of the 9, for example, for O1 visas that I've done for those in the field of business, number 1, receipt of lesser nationally and internationally recognized prizes or awards in their field. For example, maybe you've been awarded some type of business award in your field by the government in your country, or if there's some major international conference that's held annually and certain types of these awards are only issued to a select few, you could qualify for that criteria. There's also, let's see, number 7, if you serve in a critical or essential capacity for your company or organization, that have that distinguished reputation, and that organization is very well known in the industry, you could meet that criteria. And then, of course, number 8, usually those persons of extraordinary ability may command already a high salary or a significantly high compensation for their services compared to others in their field. So these are just some of the criteria that you can satisfy for the O1 visa. And in addition to meeting those criteria, what is also required for the O1 visa is that you need to have a contract with the U.S. employer or an agent for a set period of time. That set period of time must be laid out. The O1 visa can be issued for a maximum of 3 years, but if you can't show for that your work or services is required for that set period of time, it can be issued for less than that amount of time. For a number of fields in the O1 field, there are already established trade or consulting organizations or peer groups for a number of these fields. So if that already exists in that field, an advisory opinion is actually issued for that foreign national to confirm that they have sustained that reputation or extraordinary ability. And that's included with the filing with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And last but not least, expert letters are usually required and included with the filing for the O1 visa, because these are experts also in your field or colleagues that can attest to the foreign national's reputation or accomplishments in the industry, if it's not obvious from the evidence that you previously have shown to meet for the O1 visa. So that is a brief overview of the L1 and O1 non-immigrant visas.
Thank you, Clarissa. Thank you. And I don't know about the audience, but I am confused. But that's exactly why we have immigration lawyers, right? So if you have questions about these categories and immigration and investment in the US in general, at the end of the webinar, we will share with you Clarissa and Gerald's contact information. So stick around. And now we're going to throw in more alphabets. So if you are not a Nobel Peace Prize winner, you don't have an Olympic gold, don't despair, right? There are some other categories that might benefit you. So Gerald, take it over.
Yeah, okay. So if you're an investor and you want to make a direct investment in the United States, there are 2 paths to do so. One is a non-immigrant path, and the other is for the purpose of getting a green card. It's investment that, as they sort of facetiously say around here, it's you're buying a green card. The non-immigrant path is the E2 visa. The immigrant path is the EB-5. Just want to talk very briefly about each. The E2 visa requirements you see up on the screen you're eligible if you are a citizen of a treaty country. Now, it's important to remember that citizen of the country is not your country of birth. If your country of birth is different and they don't have a treaty, you'll be ineligible. You've got to be a citizen of you have to be a citizen of a treaty country to come on the E2. You must have invested in the process or be in the process of investing a substantial amount. Must be in possession and control. Possession and control means that you actually have the assets or the money to invest on hand. So for example, someone comes to me, they have a business that's valued at $10 million that they're in the process of selling. And once they sell it, they get the $10 million. Can they invest in the E2? The answer is no. You have to have access to the cash to be the ability to invest. It can't be based on something that might happen in the future. It has to be in hand. Commercial loans, can you use a loan for an E2 visa? Yes, you can, but if the loan is secured by the assets of the business that you intend to build, the answer is no. So you can take out a commercial loan that's backed by some other assets that you have, but and so that, you know, if you wish to invest that way, that is a possibility. With these investments, there must be risk involved, and CIS looks at this very carefully, whether you are actually putting money in risk. This is an investment. There has to be risk. There has to be a possibility of losing the investment, but there are the probability, hopefully, of succeeding in a growing and expanding business that hires a lot of people and eventually gets a lot of cash and capital flowing in the local economy. This is what they're looking for. The capital must be irrevocably committed. I often tell clients, in order to get started with the E2, I would like to see that the investment has already been made, that an office has already been established, that subcontracts even have already been signed. The more you're along the way, the easier it is to gain approval. But it must be irrevocably committed. You can't, an idea of a business is not going to cut it with USCIS. The investment must be substantial. This is probably the first and biggest question we always get on E2s. And the fact of the matter is there really is no answer as to what substantial is. It's, you know, I always say it's the bridge building theory. You build, you know, whatever you need to build the bridge from one side of the river to the other, that's what it has to be there. When you're talking about substantial, you're really talking about approving substantial, you're really talking about the business plan. The business plan is the most important document you're going to put forward. It's going to be your blueprint to building a successful business that's going to help the economy in the United States. Mind you, there are several stages of a blueprint and several stages of a business plan, and you don't have to have it all up front. You don't have to be, oh, we're going to make you know, $10 million next year. It doesn't have to say that. In fact, it could be very small. But as long as there's a clear path towards a successful business, that type of investment can succeed. We usually use as the sort of the general commitment. We usually use the figure 200,000. However, I can tell you I've successfully gotten E2 visas for people who have invested as little as 50, but the plan was very, very good. And it was very clear that 50 was all we needed at this point, but we were well on our way to a much more substantial investment. And 200 is an arbitrary figure, but if you go below 200, there's going to be a lot more scrutiny of the plan to make sure that this is a legitimate investment effort. There are no mandatory minimums, but it needs enough to be successful. They use a proportionality test, which is an inverted sliding scale. The lower the cost of the business, the higher a percentage of the investment is required. It's, you know, it goes without saying. The enterprise must be real and operating, must be close to the start of the actual business operation. So again, it's not something where you can I've got this great idea, and as when if I get the E2, I'm going to implement it, and it's going to work. They want to see that you've already got things in place to actually start the business running as soon as possible. And you also have to show that the business will offer a service or a product. If you're going to invest in stocks, or you're going to invest in someone else's business, or you'll buy shares or whatever. That's not going to work. That's not what they're looking for with the E2Bs. They're looking for they offer services or are producing products. A separate business that's going to encourage the economy and employment, and particularly employment of U.S. citizens. Mind you, there is no requirement of a specific number of U.S. citizens that need to be hired, but the plan should suggest that in the future, employing U.S. citizens is a likely probability. The enterprise must not be marginal. So I often get folks who say, if I come in and buy a gas station, and I have 10 children, and I hire my children to work the gas station, is that good enough for an E2? The answer is probably no. What they're not looking for you to come and set up a family business and a marginal enterprise. If you came and said, well, here's our plan, we're going to buy a gas station, but in time we hope to buy 10 more, and we also hope to have restaurants attached to the gas stations serving specific types of food or whatever have you. Then we're starting to see a growing business that will potentially hire a lot of people, that will potentially contribute to the larger economy, and that's the kind of thing. Applicant has to be able to develop or direct the enterprise. Must own at least 50%. 51 is better. The develop and direct. You have to control the business. You can't invest and then a 10, 15, 25%, and then somebody else runs it and you get the E2. That's not what they're looking for with the E2. The E2 is you're coming to bring your skills, your expertise, leadership, and creativity to building a business that you control and direct, and that you are putting everything at risk. But you're also there to make sure that whatever you need to do to improve your chances, that you are responsible for it. And so that is the E2Bs. Now, the
Okay, Gerald.
I'm sorry. Did I hit mute?
Well, now you're getting into a more well-known category. EB5 has been very popular, but now it's facing some challenges. So let us hear more.
It sure is. So the EB5 program was established largely to allow wealthy investors to come to the United States with a path to the green card. It's basically based on their investment, and it has been a very, very successful program. And in fact, it's often considered one of the reasons why the recession of the United States came out of a recession in 2008, 2009, one of the reasons was the investments that came in through the EB5 program. It is a very popular program in the business community, and obviously with international investors. It's had some challenges, but it's including a big one coming up. But it's been a very good program. So EB5 is as mentioned, it's a path to permanent residency here in the United States. It's by investing. You can invest two you get as a direct investment, where you actually have full ownership of the investment. So if you're starting a business, if you're expanding a business, whatever it is, but you control the investment, that's one way to do it. There's a second way, which is an indirect way, which is where you have the investment is already there, usually in the form of a regional center, and you invest in the regional center. The regional center has already been approved by USCIS as an investment, and you invest. It's a much more passive way to get the green card, but it's certainly the most popular. About 95% or so of the EB-5 applications are through those regional centers. Qualify for an EB-5, you have to be an accredited investor. So what is accredited investor? You must have a net worth exceeding $1 million. Either individually or jointly with a spouse. And this excludes the value of a primary residence. So if you have $1 million home, but 200,000 in the bank, it's not going to work. You have to have a net worth exceeding $1 million exclusive of the house. You also have to have earned income of 200,000 or 300,000 combining the wife's income, or spouse's income, in the preceding 2 calendar years. So and this has to be proven as part of your application. We have to prove that these conditions exist. The capital investment must be at least 900,000 or 1.8 million, depending on the location of the EB-5 project. So the standard minimum is 1.8 million. If the investment is in what they call a targeted employment area, then the minimum investment is 900,000. Now, this changed in the last few years. It used to be with the target employment area, you could simply go to the State Labor Bureau statistics, identify areas where there is high unemployment, and invest there. It was all the investor deciding what these T areas are based on labor statistics from the state. What ended up happening is a lot of the T areas were areas that may have had high unemployment, but they were also extremely wealthy areas, and particularly in some downtown urban areas, where there may be high unemployment because there are a number of people actually living in those areas. The unemployment high because the people who were employed were living elsewhere. So you ended up with the employment areas, targeted employment areas being ripe for some abuse. Now, the targeted employer areas are decided by USCIS. So as part of your application, you have to make the case that the area where you're investing is a targeted employment area, and then they decide. So it's made it a little more difficult to get around that, and then subsequently the standard investment is 1.8 million. It's quite a bit. One of the biggest hurdles for an EB-5 application is going to be the detailed documentation of your financing. They want to know that that whatever money you're invested is derived from a lawful source. When people are denied in their applications for the EB-5, it is often because they didn't do a good enough job in doing their due diligence around where the financing came from. Take this very, very seriously. It's, oftentimes people say, well, do they have to know this? Do they have to know that? They, if they don't know where the financing from, if there's questions about where the financing from, if you don't prove where the financing comes, they will deny. It's very, very very, very clear that this is very important with regard to this program. There's a lot of pressure to make sure that wherever the financing come from, it's from a legitimate sources, and so that's one thing you have to live with the EB-5. The one of the requirements is that the EB-5 investment must create at least 10 permanent jobs for a qualified worker over a period of 2 years. This is generally viewed from the date of the one receives a conditional permanent residency or the approval of your personal application for the EB-5 visa. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier about direct investment and indirect investment, with direct investment, you still have to hire 10 people, but the people you hire have to be direct hires. It can't be indirect hires. It can't be people who deliver the newspaper. It can't be people who come to fix the plumbing every once in a while. It has to be direct hires. Whereas with the regional centers or the indirect investment, there's a little more leeway on the types of employees that count towards the 10%, the 10 permanent jobs. So this is one of the reasons why indirect investment in the regional center is a lot more popular, because it's easier to build in a 10 to meet the 10 permanent job criteria than it is with a direct investment. Now, depending on how substantial the direct investment is, but the important thing to keep in mind is that 10 employees have to come within a 2-year period. So once you're approved with a conditional green card, and then you have to remove the condition within 2 years. The removal of the condition, one of the things they're going to ask is, did you hire 10 people? And if you didn't, you will be denied. You will not be given a green card. The condition will not be removed. So there's a lot of pressure with regard to a direct investment to meet that 10 employees in a very quick period of time. And parenthetically, a qualified U.S. worker is a U.S. citizen, a lawful permanent resident, an asylee, or a refugee. It is so if you hire non-immigrant workers or members of the family, that does not count towards the 10 permanent full-time jobs. So it's important to keep in mind that this has to be totally generally, it's not people, you're going to be hiring people that you didn't know before. You have to come in and create new jobs. And the applicant must engage in the management of the commercial enterprise, either through the day-to-day management or through policy formulation. So this now, obviously, when you're talking about a regional center, you're basically buying into the management. So there's no requirement. For example, if you buy in a regional center that's building the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in New York City, you don't have to be part of the management, day-to-day responsible management, because you've already bought in. You've bought in to an approved investment that already has a management system in place. And and USCIS has already approved it. So they've said that, okay, if you get investors, then they are covered with regard to this expectation. But if it's your own direct commercial enterprise, then yes, you have to be responsible for day-to-day management, or you have to be heavily involved. This is not an opportunity for a passive investment with somebody else running the business. That's, again, as with E2, it's got to be. Now, just lastly on the EB-5, because it is a popular and well-known program, but it is set to expire at the end of this month. unless Congress reauthorizes it. In the past, the program, which is parenthetically never been made permanent, it's always been authorized in one-year increments. But earlier this year, Congress took the unusual step of decoupling the program's extensions from the appropriations legislation. And they did give a 6-month extension, but it means that the program will expire in mid-year unless Congress reauthorizes. There is a major bill for reauthorization that's being discussed now to extend to September 2026. But the prospects right now are a bit uncertain. There is enormous support from business groups, but it seems that there is opposition. The strange part about it that's different from most years is that we're not seeing an opposition that has a alternate platform or a series of complaints or concerns with regard to the reauthorization bill that's up before Congress now. This is sort of mysterious opposition to it. And we all know that there are some who, for their reasons, are opposed to the ability to, quote unquote, buy a visa. So that's certainly, we know that that's out there. But the concern right now is that for the perspective of those of us who are on the outside, we're not hearing a lot of debate on this. We're not hearing a lot of the issues that are being raised. There's an opposition, and there's people who are for it. And what the concern for most of us, and most of us who have EB-5 clients, is that we're not getting a sense of what's going to happen to them if the EB-5 program is not reauthorized. There's no clarity, there's no detail. So, as we wait for those answers, I would encourage you to stay in touch if you're interested in the EB-5 program, and stay in touch with us. And Clarissa is well experienced with EB-5. Stay in touch with us, and we'll keep you posted on what is going on and what the possible impact might be.
Well, thank you, Gerald. I guess the coming couple of weeks will be extremely important. Probably a lot of people are standing on their toes. So thank you very much, Gerald. Thank you very much, Clarissa, for sharing us with the valuable information. Now we open for questions. We already received one question from Stephanie. If someone would like to hire a housekeeper from Asia, is it possible? And what visa categories would that person need, qualify? Either of you would like to pick up the question?
Well, so there are a couple ways you can do it. Probably the easiest way is to bring them on a J-1 visa, which is an au pair visa. This is a program that's actually set up within the State Department to allow people to hire au pairs. It's usually set up with agencies in the country where the au pair would be, so if you wanted somebody from a specific country, there would be an agency in that country that where people register as au pairs, and then this is generally handled through the State Department. So Clarissa and I wouldn't necessarily be involved in that process, but they would be there. That is the main way that people bring nannies. The other way, there are a couple of other ways too. There's possibly an H-2B visa that if you can make the case, this is for somebody who would come as an employee, and you have to go through it's a bit of a modified PERM process, but you have to go through a PERM process to make sure that U.S. citizens had a fair chance to come and get the position. You'd have to prove that they were not treated unfairly in the process. Um, uh, Another way is if you were interested in bringing them permanently, it would be to go through the EB3 green card process, which is a little more involved, but it's a full-blown perm process. But that's another way.
Okay, so Clarissa, do you have a real case you could share with us in any of the investment category? Oh, would you like to share with the audience a real case that you handle?
Sure. But just to add to Gerald, he did mention the au pair, and luckily enough, with the current travel bans in place, the J1 au pair is actually exempt. So it's part of the NIE categories if you're coming from one of those countries that is subject to the travel ban, where you are able to enter the United States. So just any type of investor, Jill, like case?
Yeah, some interesting case.
Okay, I can share with one that I've done recently. I've done a number of, just like Gerald, a number of E2s and EB5s. We have a number of EB5 clients that invest with, as Gerald mentioned, with the regional centers. They are already investing in a project that's already been pre-approved by USCIS, but others who are just wanting to just temporarily maybe just see whether their business, how well their businesses or companies would survive in the US. We've done a number of E2 visas. Just in the past year, I've done one for someone who wanted to open a children's bookstore in the LA area. Part of her main reasons was also wanting to keep her children, who happened to be US citizens at the time, because her husband's a US citizen spouse, but she was not wanting to seek green card status in the United States, but also wanted to have maybe also her children study in the States. She was interested in, these programs that promoted literacy for children. So we helped her invest in an existing business in a children's book store in LA that was already well established. So we helped her invest in that business so that it would continue to employ the US workers and possibly provide additional jobs. So that's one of the most recent ones I did prior to the pandemic. It's a little bit more difficult to obtain one of these visas if you can't show that, the NIE, if you're coming from one of these countries that's subject to the ban, that it's supporting one of the sectors of the US in critical infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the many. I mean, I've done a number in, it's just so many different types. I've done like ones who have actually just opened, let's just say, gas stations in the US, but him employing like an array of US workers that have actually worked on, we've had a dentist not too long ago that wanted to establish temporary residence in the US. So he actually set up an office in the United States in, I believe, in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So it varies. And then we've also had like investment companies, but like Gerald said, not investing passively, but actually investing, actively in the United States.
Yes. So we went through L1, O, E2, EB5. If any of the category fits your need, please contact our lawyers. Their contact information is on the screen right now. Other than that, if you're interested in coming to the US to study, there is another alphabet that may help you. That's F1, student visa. That's where the University of North America can help you with. Yeah, 80% of our student body is international. So we're very familiar with helping international students. Even those people who are waiting for their investment visa, they may benefit from a student visa. So we offer business programs. So you're an entrepreneur, business manager. Our business program may be of interest to you. And we also have various spectrum of IT programs. They offer great job opportunities. So if you're interested, go to our website, uona.edu. Okay, now more questions are coming in. All right. Sky is the limit, is the person. He asked, okay, we're a small government contractor that has childcare centers in the area in South Dakota and West Virginia, as well as upstate New York, that have great struggle obtaining quality workers. Quality workers. Is there a way we can recruit and get workers overseas if we want visa? What visa would be best for them to apply in our case? So they have a business in the US, a daycare center, but they have a hard time recruiting enough workers. Can they bring foreign workers for their service?
Sure.
Gerald, go ahead.
Right. Well, you know, it would, a lot will depend on exactly what type of worker they're looking for, including the qualifications. The first thing, the most important questions you have to ask when someone is looking for an employee is, one, what is the job description? And two, are you looking for a non-immigrant worker, or are you looking for a permanent? If you're looking for a non-immigrant worker, it's going to be a challenge. The closest option is going to be an H-2B, which is a very limited program. They give 66,000 visas a year. It's generally the priority for them is where there is a need in the United States, as opposed to you know, the first come first serve, like perhaps, or lottery winners, perhaps, you know, as some of the other visas are. The H-1B, which is the most popular employment visa, is limited to those with bachelor's degrees. If you're asking for people to work in daycare, it would be hard to argue that that is a specialty occupation as required by the H-1B program. So you would have to edge out a bunch of other people for the H-2B, and there are limits on the H-2B in terms of the length of time. The H-1B is for 3 years. The H-2B is for 6 months, which could be extended into a year, and then you have to reapply, and it can get expensive, and it can get cumbersome if you're lucky enough to get one. If you're asking for workers to come on a green card, that is a possibility under the EB-3 green card, but it's going to take a long time. The green card process is a long and drawn out process. It's not easy to gain a legal permanent residency in any country, including the United States. So the challenge there is the length of time that you have to go through before you can get your employees, working.
Okay.
So it is a challenge.
So time to consult a lawyer. That's the answer.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the
Absolutely.
H-2B program has quite stringent requirements where deadlines have to be met. There is a mini labor market test that needs to be conducted prior to being eligible for the visa. So definitely, if you're looking for that type of visa, consult an immigration attorney.
Sure.
Yes, and start with the university.
Exactly. There you go.
I know some of our university are actually being helped by our panel lawyers here, so extra appreciation for that. Okay, so because of the time constraint, I think we will finish our webinar today at this point. If you have further questions, please contact AACC as well as the panelists, Gerald and Clarissa, directly. So thank you very much for your participation, as well as those who watched the video. Thank you.